Dogs, bred countlessly throughout the years to appease to the human gaze, modified to look to be the perfect accessory. Now, when putting the word accessory to use, many think about those pretty dogs that have a lot of grooming done to them to look cute, who go through pageants and who win awards. But let's take a moment to refer to the more cruel methods people have their dogs go through to achieve an aesthetic look. Cropping ears, the method of cutting off the external flap of a dog's ears and putting their ears within a brace for weeks at a time, usually from the ages of 8 to 15 weeks old, is when this procedure happens. To train their ears to stand upward is one of these cruel cosmetic methods many use, as they also don't use anesthesia or any pain relieving medicine when this happens, making the entire process very painful for the dogs. Dog breeds such as Dobermans, Pit Bulls, Boxers, and even Great Danes are one of the most common breeds to have this treatment subjected onto them, unfortunately, having the general public not know of how they look like in actuality. Along with cropping ears, docking a dog's tail, the surgical removal of a puppy's tail for cosmetic purposes, in which they bring out a pair of scissors and chop off the puppy's tail at ages just up to 2 to 5 days of age, are some other cruel cosmetic methods used. Though sometimes necessary to cut off a tail in cases such as an intense injury, there are a lot of drawbacks to this too, as dogs often communicate with their tails. These methods are both, on the most part, pointless, and cause unnecessary harm to the dogs just for the purpose of having them look more intimidating. And if this is bad, the history of these procedures are even worse than expected. Some dogs, unfortunately, have these happen to them due to being bred and built into fighters, such as pit bulls. Pit bull bred cruelty has been traced back to the 1800s and before, when their ancestors, the English bull baiting dog, used to wrangle and fight with much larger animals such as bulls and bears. They would go for their necks and faces. Within the 1800s, when this sort of treatment was banned, people would turn to dog fights for entertainment. Dog fighting, as such, having these dogs' ears and tails cut off and cropped, so within the fight, there would be less for the other dog to grab onto. There are centuries of abuse laced behind cropping dogs' ears that aren't as related to medical reasons as most think. Some may argue that cropping a dog's ears would reduce infections, but studies have shown directly opposing results, as it is much more up to the breed of the dog rather than how floppy their ears are that have more effect on how likely they are to get an infection. It doesn't do much for the dog, not improving them in any way rather than just for looks. So, would you believe me if I told you that pit bulls and Dobermans naturally had floppy ears? Yep, these intimidating babies are just regular babies undercover, and are both incredibly sweet breeds, often feared. Break the stigma against these dogs, and start putting more blame on the owners.